We are making a Greek chicken and lemon rice. Not only is this so tasty, but this is one pot and it's just about 30 minutes to make this dinner, which is so incredibly easy. I did go ahead and pre-cook our rice, which makes this even faster. We actually made the rice yesterday. It's been in the refrigerator. I had some time available, so I knew that was gonna save me time today. I've got 2 pretty large chicken breasts here. We need to season these with salt, both sides. I'm also gonna add oregano, which is a wonderful Greek flavor. Gotta have oregano when working with Greek flavors. A little bit of paprika. That adds a smokiness and a beautiful color when you're cooking up the chicken. Okay, we're gonna rub that in just a little bit and then flip the chicken and season the other side. This side is gonna be the same thing, except I'm gonna add a little bit of red pepper flakes just to increase some extra flavor and a little bit of heat. Obviously, I'm in a different outfit. Let me explain what happened. My kids have been doing a reading goal through Nothing Bundt Cakes, and if you get to 400 minutes in a month, you can turn in your tracker from Nothing Bundt Cakes and they'll give you a free buntlet. So we went to go pick that up, so I put everything away real quickly so we could run out and do that. When we were driving by Chick-fil-A, there was a monster truck out front. So we decided, let's go get the bundt cake, let's come back to Chick-fil-A so my son can take a look at the monster truck. They had this wheel that you could spin, and my kids actually won free dinner from Chick-fil-A because of the monster truck thing. So ultimately we decided to just eat out. So I'm returning to finish this recipe. It is the next day. My chicken has been in the refrigerator. It's just been marinating in this, you know, the seasoning blend that we put on it. So let's go ahead and start this process over again. Now I have a cast iron skillet over on the stovetop. Just a regular skillet is completely fine. I'm gonna go ahead and get this started, and then we will come back over to this side of the kitchen and prep the lemon rice stuff that's gonna happen after the chicken cooks. Now, like I said, this is one pot, but you're cooking the chicken first, taking it out, doing the rice, then putting the chicken back in. So it's all in one pot, just separately. Okay, I'm gonna turn my heat on, and we want a medium high. We wanna get this oil nice and hot before we put that chicken in. While my pan is heating, let's get some stuff prepped for the next part of the recipe. I've got some spinach that I've already chopped, and we've got some little tomatoes. You can cut them in half. I'm probably gonna cut them into, I don't know, we'll just kind of chop them up a little bit. They're kind of oddly shaped, so you can't just cut them in half. I mean, I guess you can, but we're not going to. I'm gonna toss these in some oregano. That's about a teaspoon. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to them, although I think there'll still be some oil in the pan. I wanna add a little bit to these. Just about a teaspoon, really. And then a pinch of salt. Let's go back over to the other side. Everything else is pretty much ready. We've got some garlic, we've got some lemon that we're gonna be using with our rice. I actually have my rice over here. It's going through a reheat process because I cooked it yesterday, and I want it to be nice and soft so that I can pull it out. If you put rice into a container and then put it in the fridge, it all clumps together. So I'm trying to re-soften that back up. I think I'm gonna cook the chicken in batches because this is a rather small cast iron skillet, and we're not fitting 4 pieces in there. And we're gonna put on an apron because every time I use the cast iron skillets, I end up ruining a shirt. We are cooking our chicken all the way through, but we do wanna make sure that we're not burning it. We want everything that stays in that pan to add really good flavor to the next step that's coming, but we don't want it to be burnt. We wanna keep our heat to a medium low and not try and cook the chicken too fast. I am such a goof. Part of the reason I chose this recipe is because it has chickpeas in it, and I thought that would be so good. I love chickpeas. I'm always looking for interesting ways to use them. And I went out there and I looked at our canned goods and I'm like, oh, we have plenty of chickpeas. I mean, I looked at the label, I opened the can, and I'm like, that's not chickpeas. No, it's not. It's great northern beans. I thought we had 5 cans of chickpeas. We have 0 cans of chickpeas. And at this point, I'm not delaying this recipe another night. So we're gonna find something to do with great northern beans. Although I think beans would actually work just fine in this recipe, I was really wanting to do chickpeas. All right, we're taking the chicken out of the pan. These are done, so we just need to set them to the side. I'm taking about half of my tomatoes and adding them to my pan. It's pretty hot right now. We probably need to turn the heat down to low, but we just wanna make the tomatoes sweat and release their juices and just cook up a little bit. So we're gonna cook these for maybe 1 to 2 minutes before adding anything else. I'm gonna add a little bit more oil to the pan before we add the other ingredients. I'm adding a pinch of salt to these to really give them good flavor, just about a ½ teaspoon or so. We are at a good temperature now to add in the garlic. Let's do about a clove, maybe a clove and a half. Just let that cook for about a minute. Watch it, make sure your heat is on a low enough temperature that it doesn't burn. These have some great color, so we need to add in that spinach that we chopped up and let it wilt. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking you can definitely add a lot more spinach because this is going to decrease in size so much. So if you want to add 6 to 8 ounces of spinach, just keep that in mind, that it's going to significantly decrease, probably by maybe a fifth or even more than that, honestly, because spinach wilts down to such a small amount. This is the rice that we cooked yesterday. I've re-steamed it and we are just gonna add about 2 cups of this to our pan here. I'm not really measuring, I'm just kind of, overall, this thing I think has 3 cups of rice uncooked. So we're adding about 2/3 of the total in here. Let's just stir all of this together, combine all of the ingredients that we have in there so far. Now before I continue stirring this, we need to add about 3 tablespoons of lemon juice to the rice. We really want to give this good lemon flavor. And now we mix it all together. Add in the rest of the tomatoes that were cut so that we can mix all of that together and bring all of this up to temperature. This is gonna go on a medium-low heat and we're just gonna let it cook for a few minutes. We're gonna make up our feta mixture and we just need some feta cheese, just about 3 to 4 ounces or so. I'm using about 3/4 of a cup. And then I'm going to I wanna mix in some olive oil. So maybe about a teaspoon or so of olive oil. Then our lemon juice, mix in about a teaspoon of lemon juice and then top that off with some oregano and we'll just mix all of that together. This right here is gonna go into our rice in just a second, but before that, we need to cut up our chicken. I don't think I'm gonna use all 4 of these chicken breasts because it's just quite a bit. So we're gonna cut that up, each one of them just into slices, and then I'm probably gonna reserve 1 to 1.5 for lunches because it is so good on things like salads or in pasta salad. It's a perfect lunch option. So I'm kind of glad we have all this cooked up. All right, let's try the chicken. The flavor is so good. Okay, everything is nice and heated through, which is exactly what we want here. I'm gonna add in about half of the feta mixture and stir that around. Maybe a little more than half, actually. And then top this with that sliced chicken. Okay, let's mix some of it in a little bit and then top with the rest. Finish off with the feta mixture. And then I'm gonna go grab some thyme from the garden and add that as well. My husband is actually working in the yard and the kids are finishing up a math lesson. So I'm just gonna try this, even though we're not quite ready to eat. It's just gonna sit over there and stay nice and warm until we're ready, maybe 20 minutes or so. Let's give it a try. That is very good. You could definitely add more spinach, adding more green, and since it wilts down so far because we chopped it, I mean, it's little tiny pieces of spinach. So for anybody that doesn't like spinach, it probably wouldn't bother you. Initially, you get this bite of savory food, but then the lemon hits. And it's very good with the mixture of the lemon and the oregano and the salt and the feta cheese. This was so easy to make, guys. Like, one thing, you guys know I'm a prep-aheader. Typically in a week, I will already have bacon prepped, sausage prepped, things like that. But rice is another thing that you can easily prep ahead of time if you're doing a bunch of things in your kitchen. So for me, I'll throw it into the rice maker and then it's ready. My kids can grab it if they need to add some carbohydrate to lunch or bulk up whatever their lunch is. I love having that available. Y'all, the flavors of this are really, really good. And I mean, look how many dishes I have. That's it. We're gonna make a creamy pepperoncini skillet for dinner tonight. It sounds delicious, but we need to prep a few things first. I've got these whole pepperoncini peppers. I'm just gonna slice them a little bit. I would say use however many you like. You can actually leave them whole too. Don't feel like you have to slice them. I just feel like they're gonna be better sliced in this recipe. I'm not even taking all the seeds out. You can be really meticulous and take all of them out. I'm not too concerned about it. It all depends on how much heat you like. I'm just gonna transfer all of this to a bowl. And these are gonna get cooked over on the stovetop in a few minutes. Let's get rid of the trash here. And then we're gonna cut our chicken into strips. I have a pound of boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I'm gonna cut these into strips. You guys know I always go through and cut any bone pieces off. But I'm making these pretty decently thin strips, probably 1/2 inch. Everything is prepped and ready to go. So let's season our chicken with some salt and pepper. Always try and season from up high when you're working like this, because then even though you're gonna get some on the counter and on the floor, you're going to prevent, or at least mostly prevent, getting big clumps of salt in one area. Now we're gonna take a little bit of pepper. And let's take this over to the stove where we're gonna saute this in a pan. I'm gonna turn my heat on to a medium-ish and put a little bit of oil into the pan. My oil is nice and hot, so I'm gonna add in just a little sliver of butter. You can really add up to like 2 tablespoons. Just get that melty. And then we will add in the chicken and let that chicken start to sear. Now I might need to do this in batches just to make sure we get good sear on all of it. Now keep in mind, the goal here is not to cook these all the way through. It's just to add flavor and sear off the outer edges. So I did add a little bit of paprika. I do think that adds such a beautiful flavor when you're searing chicken. These are about done. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the next batch because they're gonna cook again once we make our sauce. And I already did add paprika to the next batch. I don't know what I was thinking before. All of my chicken is cooked. Now I've turned my pan down to a low because I wanna make sure that we don't burn this next step. We're gonna add in some garlic. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna add a touch of chicken broth or bone broth to my pan just to kind of deglaze it a little bit. Add a little bit of garlic, about a tablespoon. Let's do that. And let's saute that. So now I can go back up with my heat a bit. I'm going to a medium low just so we don't burn this. Now, obviously, if you're adding onion, this is also where you would want to do that. It's only gonna take about 2 minutes or so. That garlic is nice and toasted. I'm adding in right around 1/4 cup of chicken stock. And also all those peppers. Okay, we're just gonna let these kind of saute a little bit. If I need to add a little bit of butter in here, I will. But I'm on a medium to a medium high heat right now. And I'm just gonna let those work for just a couple of minutes. Not only are the vegetables nice and soft now, or the pepper, it's softened up a bit, our sauce has also reduced by about half. So we're gonna go ahead and turn the heat off. Now, I'm using half and half, but you can use heavy cream. I'm gonna add about a 1/2 cup and slowly just start to whisk that in. Might do a little more than a 1/2 cup just as I look at this. I could have used my smaller pan. So you can go up to a cup. Now a cup is probably more for 2 pounds of meat, but I wanna make sure we have a good amount of sauce because, that's half the fun here. Now we're gonna slowly bring this back up to a medium heat. So I'm gonna start at low. While it's on low and the heat is still almost off at this point, I'm going to add in some Parmesan cheese. This is shaved Parmesan, about a 1/4 cup, but again, this is another one. You wanna incorporate slowly so that nothing clumps together, breaks apart. Nothing worse than working hard on something like this and then your Parmesan cheese clumping all together and ruining the entire thing. So I always like to add slow. Now I'm gonna add in a little bit of Italian seasoning. And then we're gonna add back in the chicken. Just let that chicken reheat through. Still on a low. I am gonna take it up to a medium here as soon as I put that chicken back in and let everything come up to temperature. This is gonna be so good. I love pepperoncini peppers. Now, if the sauce seems to thicken too much, add in a little bit more bone broth, just a little bit, or chicken broth, and then you can kind of thin it out, letting the chicken come up to that temperature. I'm gonna be serving mine over mashed potatoes. I'm assuming my kids will probably eat the mashed potatoes on the side, but I have that available, ready to go. And just look, this is gonna be so good. You could serve this over rice, noodles. This looks and smells delicious. Now that's great flavor. I topped it with just a little bit more Parmesan cheese and some fresh thyme because you guys know fresh thyme is my favorite right now. This is so good. I love the little pepperoncinis. The sauce is fantastic. I do think it'd be good with roasted bell peppers too. In my opinion, this packs the perfect amount of flavor, heat, everything. This is a winner. This Feeding a Crowd recipe is a Cajun chicken Alfredo. It's 1 pot, which is amazing. You can double it, triple it, however much you need, but it makes it so easy that you can make it all over on the stovetop in 1 pot. I'm gonna be doing that, but then I'm actually transferring it to an aluminum pan. And that's because we're gonna be taking it with us somewhere, and it's just a lot easier to take that, and then they'll be sitting in the trays that have sternos under them to keep them warm. So it'll be a lot easier to do it that way, but I love that I can make it all in 1 pot first. I am doubling this recipe. So I'm gonna be using about a 1/2 pound of chicken. I'm using chicken breast, and then these organic Cajun style andouille chicken sausages. You don't have to use chicken sausages. You can use whatever kind you want, but I'm starting off by just cutting the chicken breasts in half, like you guys know I love to do. I prefer to thin it out, and then we're gonna cut it into strips and then bite-sized pieces. Now, I actually do not have a pot big enough to double this recipe and cook it all at the same time, which is really unfortunate. So we're gonna be doing 2 rounds. We're gonna be making the exact same recipe twice. And this recipe only takes about 30 minutes, so it's not too big of a deal to have to do that. But if you have a really big pot, then you might be okay. But I'm gonna go ahead and, I'm dirtying my knife and my cutting board, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut all of the meat at the same time for both recipes. I'm cutting these at an angle just because I like the way they look when they're cut at an angle, so feel free to cut them however you want. Completely fine, either way. All right, just to make a little more room on my cutting board, I'm gonna go ahead and get the chicken started in my pot right here. I am gonna take my salt and just season the chicken a bit with the salt. You could probably do this once it gets in your pan. All right, let's go into the oil with the chicken. And I'm just gonna go ahead and cook all of the chicken right now. You can definitely do this in batches. Well, actually, let's see what it looks like. I think I'm actually gonna do it in batches just to make sure we don't have overcrowding. We have a good saute on half of the chicken, so I'm gonna transfer to a plate and then do the second round. All right, again, we have our chicken that is nicely browned, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that. Now, if your sausage is uncooked, you definitely wanna go ahead and cook it at this point. Since I'm gonna be adding it into the pasta and it's really just a reheat, I'm not worried about throwing that in right now. It's all gonna get heated up in this pot. All right, I have about 4 cloves of garlic. We're gonna quickly saute that, very quickly. And add in 4 cups or 1 quart of broth. This is bone broth. Feel free to use chicken broth. Okay, we want to scrape the bottom because anything that's at the bottom has extra flavor. My heat is on right about medium right now. Okay, I have about 2.5 cups of heavy cream that we are going to add into this pot. And then about a tablespoon of Cajun seasoning. This is where you can make it less spicy if you want to add less of that. And let's just stir all of that together and let that just come up to temperature. This all came out of the fridge, so it's kind of cold right now. We're nearing a simmer, so I'm gonna pour in 1 box of this penne pasta, and we are going to fully bring it up to a simmer. All right, friends, we have a simmer, so let's add in half of that sausage. Yours would already be in there if it was not fully cooked sausage. And again, I'm adding half because I am doubling this recipe, so I'm gonna be doing this exact same process again in about 20 minutes. And we're also gonna add back in half of the chicken. All right, stir all of that together. And I'm gonna turn my heat to low and put a lid on this, and it's gonna cook for about 15 to 20 minutes. We're waiting on that pasta to get done. The noodles are softened. They're nice and al dente, so we can leave that lid off now. Now we need to add in the cheese so that we can make our sauce. Okay, so we need to turn our heat all the way off, and we're actually going to remove the pot from the heat. So I'm gonna back it up a little bit. And we're going to slowly add in our Parmesan cheese. Overall, we're using about 4 ounces of Parmesan, but you don't wanna add it all in at one time. They don't mix well when you do that, so you gotta go slow. Okay, I am adding parsley because I feel like it needs color. Also, it is not spicy at all. I mean, you could definitely go heavier on the Cajun seasoning. Cajun doesn't necessarily mean spicy, but if you want it to be a little spicier, if you want a little more Cajun flavor, feel free to top it with some more of that. Okay, while that was sitting and the sauce is thickening up, I went ahead and got everything ready over here for round 2. So this is gonna come together really quick, but let's get the pasta into this travel container. Go all in. It looks delicious. Actually, you know what? Let me just put a little bit in a bowl so that I can taste it on camera for you guys. All right, we got a little bit over here separated, and I'm gonna top this with parsley just so it looks really pretty. Oh, we left a sausage in there. Don't wanna do that. Amazing. All right, now we just cover with foil and it's ready to travel. All right, before I wrap this up, if the sauce is almost just thick enough, it's almost there. So I'm leaving it uncovered just for a couple more minutes. Let's give this a taste. I'm gonna taste the sausage and see how spicy the sausage is. All right, the sausage packs a little heat. The sauce is really flavorful, good flavor on the chicken. This is very good. I like this one a lot. Honestly, the sauce is really not that spicy, but that chicken sausage that I used is. So you could absolutely make this and it's still gonna be Cajun, but not spicy Cajun if you just don't use a spicy sausage. But very good, good flavor, super easy to make. Our verse today comes from Psalms 32:11. Rejoice in the Lord and be glad, you righteous. Sing, all you who are upright in heart. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I would love if you would subscribe and stick around, hit that subscribe button. You can also hit the bell next to it, and that's gonna notify you whenever I post a new video. The next thing you should do though is watch this video that I have listed above. You're gonna get even more encouragement and inspiration in the kitchen. Have a great week.